Welcome to the Visual Storytelling Podcast. In today's episode, I have something a little different lined up for you. It's a slightly longer episode than usual, or to be entirely honest, it's a lot longer because I sit down with Billy Haynes of Miru Visuals and discuss drones and how they can be used for business. So if you're thinking of incorporating drone footage into your portfolio, then you're going to want to listen to what Billy has to say.
I'm Billy, I'm the Managing Director at Miru Visuals. We're a marketing agency that specialises in construction and real estate. So we offer a wide range of solutions for our clients. So it could be anything from like video production, photography, drone imagery, CGI, time-lapse, all of that. We say anything visual that is part of a construction project and can help our clients to communicate what's happening on site and also to sort of solidify their brand and improve their brand image is what we can help with.
Fantastic. The topic of discussion for today's podcast is going to be about, or predominantly around the drone stuff you do. Mm-hmm. We've just discussed that tends to be the majority of the stuff that your company pushes out on socials, but we will sort of discuss the other elements because there will be that crossover between the stills, the videos, and sort of the drone moving stuff. So yeah, we'll cover all of that. So what I want to talk about really is the benefits that all of those aspects have for businesses and how they can benefit from having companies like yourself work with them to push out their image and give them some good visuals. So let's start with the drone stuff then. So how can drone footage be used for and by businesses?
Yeah. So I mean, obviously I'll look at it from a construction and real estate point of view. So I think what drone allows us to do is to really showcase a development or a property in its entirety. I mean, from the ground, you can get, a good idea, but when you take, the drone up and you get a good shot of the building, the development that you're looking at, and also the surrounding area, there's nothing quite like that can give that element of insight. So for our clients, it sort of like splits into two areas. We work on the marketing side, so that could be sort of, like I said, branding and them as a company solidifying that. It could be for sales and marketing, so if they're looking to sell a particular product or whether they're looking to take that to a new client and showcase what they've done previously. But then on the other side, there is a very practical side of using a drone. And that is sort of to showcase progress update. So we do a lot of work with our clients where we will work from start to finish on a project that, could be anything from sort of 3 months all the way up to, 25 years, which is one of our projects that we're working on at the minute. So what it allows you to do though is give an insight that is just not possible from the ground. If you're talking about a vast site, if you're talking about a single level sort of extension for someone's home, it's not really required. But if you're looking at a really wide development that is quite vast, you need to show sort of like the key updates to teams that are not always based on site. Then there is honestly nothing else that could give that level of insight. And that's where we find our clients get the most value, is when they're looking at drone imagery in sort of two aspects. It's not just the marketing side of things. It's, a really, really useful tool, not just for, say, like surveying, but just for general communications with all of the teams and all of the key stakeholders that are involved.
Yeah. So obviously, sticking with the construction theme, because actually that is what you do, and you work on large projects. So if we sort of for a second just park the creative aspect of it and sort of how good it looks and to show that that development journey from start to finish. Do you think businesses can also benefit from almost like a regulation or an insurance standpoint to show that what they're doing is because each site will go through certain stages where they have to, like any construction site, they'll have to have an assessor come in and say yes, that's fine, or no, it's not. So do you think enough businesses use drone footage to that effect?
I mean, it's an interesting one. I think that drone technology is still relatively young, and I think that people are, using it a lot more for, practical reasons as time goes by. And I think that as the technology gets better, I think that there's a lot more that we're going to be able to do with it. Now, it's like any technology. Some of that is a bit gimmicky, and might not have, true value. But I do think that clients and construction companies are using drones a lot more, and I think that for that practical element. Now, whether it is for sort of insurance purposes or things like that, I'm not sure, but what I definitely know that they are doing is things like sort of checking stock, getting an idea of site boundaries, and that side of, I guess the formalities, because by having a document, a visual document, there's nothing else that is quite like that. So if you do have a dispute down the line, say like of a boundary line or anything like that, if you've got an existing visual document from a previous time that is, coded and, there to see on record, that's a great, asset to have just in case anything does pop up down the line.
Yeah. So, I just sort of picked up on the thing on the word stock there when people are checking stock. As I'm sure you're aware, when it comes to photography and normal video, sort of the traditional video as everybody knows it, we creators have this constant battle of people. My mate's got I've got I can do it myself. Yeah. So when if they're doing stock, using it for, so just to use a warehouse sort of scenario, people are using drones to check stock and things, or take stock of what's going on. Are you finding that more people are saying, I can do that myself, I've bought myself a £200 drone, I can do it, or
I think, if you're looking at, so as I was saying with like stock, so it would be like things like aggregates and volumes of materials that are on site. You can, there's softwares out there, there's drone technology that can survey that and give a good sort of estimate as to how much stock is on site. Yeah. I wouldn't say that particularly is something that people that have just hobbyists that work on site that have got a drone are doing, because the cost of the materials, the cost of the software is obviously quite an expense, and also it has to be the right drone. So if you was just to take a sort of like a DJI Mini 3-up or Mini 4, it's doing everything by visuals and by GPS. Right. Whereas what you'd really need to have is a proper sort of survey drone that can be beaconed, so it has fixed points that can actually reference, so you're getting an accurate sort of thing. But there is, there's new softwares that are coming out all the time, and it's down the line. I don't think it's an impossibility to say that those smaller drones would have the capacity to do something like that, even if it is a rough estimate. Yeah.
No. Yeah. I think you kind of answered the question perfectly there. In that it's not just the drone. It's the software that comes with it. It's the how the drone is or operates and is tracked. So no, that's brilliant. So we mentioned that you do construction. Let's talk a bit more about the area that you and your company focus on, and some of the projects that you've worked on.
Yeah. So I mean, So obviously we mainly do you know, construction and architectural sort of projects, and where that sort of come from as an agency was that we were offering other services to our clients, and we'd built good trust with them, and at the point in which we were, you know, getting into or getting asked to do drone, it wasn't as sort of widespread as what it is now. And we felt like, you know, we used a few sort of, you know, freelancers or outsourced.
Yeah.
And the quality that come back just wasn't up to what we needed and what we required sort of for our projects. You know, as an agency, where our sort of position sits is that we're the sort of the high quality, you know, provider.
Yeah.
So all of our, you know, content that leaves this office is, you know, of the highest standard, and, you know, is the best that, you know, they could possibly get from, you know, the project and the budget that we're working on. So when we were outsourcing, we found that a large percentage of the drone operators that were licensed were essentially hobbyists.
Right.
So a lot of them had either, you know, passions in sort of fixed wing aircraft, or some of them were even sort of like, you know, like light aircraft pilots themselves, and, you know, get into it, you know.
Yeah.
Because back then as well, it was like the process to get your CAA certification was a bit of a nightmare, and I mean it still is now, to be fair, but it was just so long-winded back then. So what we found was that we were getting back the imagery, and it just wasn't what we needed. And the difference was because you know, the pilots, they were coming from a very different space from the like photography creative side. Yeah. So we're looking at it with sort of like framing in mind and everything like that, whereas they're looking at it purely as a sort of like operations side of things and just flying the drone. Yeah. So then with that, we took the decision to invest and, you know, get our own qualifications here. And it was probably the best thing that we could do, because it was very clear that, you know, having that eye on framing, having that creative, it allowed us to just excel on the majority of content that was out there from drones, and especially in construction. So, you know, when you've got that skill set, I think it's, you know, it's the footage will speak for itself, because a frame is a frame, and it's very hard to teach framing in creative and creating. So whether you're don't know, a still image or whether it's a video, you know, to get a good frame and a good shot, that's something that you can't just train. You've got to learn it, and you've got to learn it from experience by getting out there. It doesn't matter what camera you've got, shooting on your phone or whatever. But and I think that there is still a large part of the industry that is hobbyists, and you can easily tell, you know, like for us, it's very, and it's not like coming from an arrogant place or anything like that, because each to their own. But if you're trying to sell a service, especially a creative service like we are, you know, there's a sort of standard, I think, that, you know, we have to hit, and it's our expectation of our clients that, you know, we've got to feel that. So I think that there's a lot of drone imagery that we do see, which, you know, it's quite clear that the art of, you know, framing a shot and picking a good sort of visual image, you know, something that tells a story. That gets lost an awful lot.
So do you think your background within sort of the photography and the sort of traditional video has helped when doing your drone?
Yeah, massively. I mean, and like I say, it's my passion. And it's everyone who works here, it's their passion, you know. Even Claire in operations, you know, she's like, you know, her eye for now capturing image, just working around us, you know, it's so much better. But it's my passion. Like, I remember I bought my first sort of camera probably 25 years ago. It was like a DV tape camera, right? Yeah, so you know, take it and then back it up, and you know, and that's all I've ever wanted to do. That's all. Just tell stories,
Yeah.
whatever it is. Not just construction. Now it's construction, but
Yeah.
you know, might have been just friends and might be on holidays and things like that. But that was always my passion. So that's all I've wanted to ever do, is just tell stories through visuals. And whether that's photography or whether that's video, but whatever it is that, you know, the core of everything that we do. So in a professional sense, it's all I've ever done. You know, that's all my career has ever been dedicated to. Is like, you know, making adverts, making, you know, corporate content, you know, interviews, things like that. You know, learning as a journalist in the first place. You know, crafting a story is at the heart of like what we do and what I've ever wanted to do. So without doubt, experience and just getting hands on is the most valuable thing. It's better than any degree will ever give you when it comes to you know, creative.
Yeah, I mean, me personally, I never trained as a photographer. Mine's always mine is all self-taught through trial and error and just doing it and learning from those mistakes, and almost like a learned behaviour. I do think as well that, especially today, that art of storytelling is getting lost.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not talking about the top end sort of movie producers and directors, and because they can clearly tell a story, but I think they do that because they take the time to say, like we were at school when you write a story, the teacher always says we want a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's lost.
Yeah.
Because I don't think people have got the patience to do it now.
And also, what I completely agree. I think it's the biggest thing that is missing in our industry for so much content. You know, I see it out there, and I think it comes from two places. I think that the need for content now is so large that people aren't thinking about the value of content. So anyone, you know, can pick up a camera, right? And if you've got a good enough camera nowadays, it doesn't matter if we give it to, you know, a chimpanzee or, you know, someone, you know, a 5-year-old child, you know, chances are if they're going to take enough shots, they're going to get one good image, right?
Yeah.
Just because the technology is so good. So actually creating high quality imagery from a technical point of view is easier than ever. But what is still, I think, at the core of every good piece of content is story, and, you know, what is it trying to tell, what you're trying to show. So if we're talking about drone imagery, we're looking about framing, what are we inviting into the frame to basically communicate what we need to for a client's point of view. So if it's, you know, a development, we're looking at connectivity routes, we're looking at, you know, local sort of points of reference. So if you're in central London, how close can we, you know, showcase that central is, or green spaces, how close are they? Again, industrial, we're looking at roadways, we're looking at access routes, we're looking at all of these things. But I just see it across, you know, social media, especially LinkedIn, all the time. There's no art of storytelling, and it's one of the things that I enjoy the most, because I see it as the biggest opportunity for, you know, creatives. Because if you do spend the time and you work with a client and you craft out a story, you craft out value and what you're trying to basically, what's the purpose of the exercise, right? What you end up with is so much stronger because you've actually put the time in. So I'd say for our guys that, you know, a large amount of time spent on a project, especially with its, you know, determining whether it's going to be successful or not, is in the pre-production. Before we get the cameras out, we've got to be thinking about everything. Now that could be storyboarding for particular projects. It could just be understanding the needs of the client.
Storyboarding for me is so important, so important, especially because I know how my mind works. I'll start doing something, and then if A to B is my goal, my mind will wander, and I'll my A to B, rather than being a straight line,
Yeah.
will go all over the place.
Yeah.
Because now I'll try this, now I'll try this. It kind of just helps keep everything in focus, doesn't it? And it's one of those things you can, I mean, you're never going to do a storyboard and go, first draft, nailed it.
Yeah, yeah.
You're always going to go back to it, and you can actually know, do you know what? I'm going to change the focal length on this shot because I now think that now I've got it down. I'm thinking that might work better. So yeah, and I think these are all those little things that you've said, and I know that there's a lot more that goes into it. It's those little things I think that businesses don't understand or just don't appreciate what goes into creating even just like a 30 to 60 second clip. It's not just I'm going to turn up, I'm going to shoot it. There's your final product. There's so much that goes into it that I think people need to be more aware of.
Yeah, I think like, I agree, I guess to a certain extent. I think like, for us, first of all, there's a difference. So like certain clients will get it and completely value it. And I'd like to think that a lot of our clients do, and that's why we get the results that we get for them, and also for us. I think they'll always have an area of clients that won't quite understand that, and their value in content might not be as high, and that's probably not the client base for us if they truly don't want to get value from it. Because what we look at it like is any piece of content, whether you're talking about still imagery or whether video production or drone, it's an investment. Okay, so if you want to tap into our experience and our knowledge and work with us to get a true return on your investment, then you're the client for us, right? We'll 100% work with you. But if it is just content for content's sake and getting it up there and just showing a bit inside your business, then we're maybe not the client base for you, because we do a lot of planning, a lot of strategic work, a lot of implementation, and that's fine, because there's so many different sort of like clients out there, right? But those that do want those results and want those sort of values and everything, then we'll go to town with them, and we'll make sure that it happens and truly understand their business. And also just the point on the storyboarding, I think that storyboards are great and they're brilliant to work from, but I think there's also the issue that people can sometimes get into and dwell too much on the storyboard, because they'll dwell on it, they'll try and refine it, they'll try and make it perfect. And when you're on site, things change and you have to adapt. So if you've spent days and days on a storyboard, you get on site, it's completely different, and you start losing your mind. So we always say it's a good base, it's a good piece to communicate with clients, to say, well, look, this is the feel that we're going for, and then go, oh, okay, right, yeah, I get it. But then when you're on site, you've got to be versatile and you've got to be able to adapt. And like you say, I think it's almost impossible to say, okay, I'm going to use this like focal lens in the storyboard. I think you can put a rough sort of idea on it. So like me personally, I would put like a range of lenses. So if I know that I'm going for a wide, I know that we use Leica lenses here, so I know what primes we're going to be taking, what shot. But sometimes when I'm on site, it might be sort of a 50 rather than an 85. So I'll just put sort of like close up. I wouldn't always, unless there was a very particular shot, because like I say, sometimes you're just not sure, especially on construction, you're not always sure what the environment's going to be around it. But getting back to the other point, the storyboard helps to keep you on track. Because the issue is that if you don't have that plan, you go in, you shoot the shit out of it. Now that's great because you've got lots of content, but the issue is that you've not got super solid content. So you've tried to get 20 shots, whereas like us here, we might within that same time try and get 2 shots, because we're just trying to get the shots that we know are going to add the most value, rather than just shoot like willy-nilly running around. And I think that that's a trait that's come in, especially with people that haven't had any exposure to structure in the industry.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's something that I'm always pushing, you know, our guys on is, you know, and they're absolutely great. But, you know, my experience was that you have a set time to get the shot, especially if you're making, you know, adverts or commercials or things like that. You've got a very strict time, especially if you've got talent and things like that.
Yeah.
So you have to be a lot more structured. Whereas now, I see it a lot, especially with, you know, younger people. They've got a good eye, but they just don't have the focus on whilst being on site. And it's just like, I guess, lacking a bit of discipline or even a bit of fear as well, that, you know, like, what if we don't get everything? It's like, but, you know, don't just run around like a headless chicken grabbing everything. Like, you know, grab the shots, find the shot, grab the shot that is going to add value to the video, because you're not going to get 1,000 shots.
No, and I think as well, not only will it add value, but it saves you time at the back end doing your post.
Absolutely.
If you're having to trawl through hours and hours worth of footage because you've got everything, it's like, well, you're just making work for yourself, aren't you?
Absolutely. And that's the thing, you know, we want to deliver something to the client within a reasonable time frame.
Yeah.
So if you're going through, you know, 300 shots that you've picked up, and let's be honest, if you're shooting sort of 300 shots, I'd probably say a good 60% of those are absolute rubbish anyway. Yeah. But you've got this fear of like, I've got to grab everything, I've got to grab everything. What if I don't get this? What if I don't? No, but what if you get the right shots? What if you think about it? What if you think about the edit? And this is another thing as well. I think the edit is almost like an afterthought for a lot of people nowadays. And part of that, I think, is because we are now all digital. So, you know, being able to, the cost, I guess, of a shot isn't as it once was. So like I learned from tape. So every single shot was money. And that continued to my first couple of jobs as well. Everything was on tape still, and tape was expensive. So if you've got, you know, I don't know, an hour on tape, you've got to make sure that hour is gold or as good as, you know. So you might get variety of shots, and there's nothing wrong with that, you know, mixing it up. But I think now where we can quite literally just film for hours, and the cost, all right, you've got storage at, you know, the back end of it, but the cost isn't, you know, really associated with pressing that record like it once was. And I think that, you know, you can definitely tell those that have learnt from tape, because they do have that consciousness in it.
Yeah, I think also a lot of photographers could probably learn a lot from either going back to or at least having a go at shooting film. Yeah. Because each shot is like you say, is money. And I think rather than this sort of run and gun, what's the word I'm looking for?
Habit.
Habit, you could say a habit, that we sort of everyone's got into. It's like, oh, I can, right, got it, and I've got 1,000 photos, I'll pick 100 from that. It just, I think, just shooting, either coming from film or sort of playing around shooting with film, just slows you down. Makes you think about it. So, right, am I going to? Let's say I'm going to pluck it out of the air. Let's say this one frame's going to cost me £1. You don't get many of those with the roll of film. 24. Let's say you've got 24 frame film. That's £24. And you're going to make sure that you're getting the most out of that £24, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I do think that there's a lot of new creatives who have, because of their age, are thinking, what's this thing you're calling film? I think that they should be going back. Even, I'm not saying those at college, university, they're probably getting some sort of exposure to film, but for people like myself who didn't study it at school because it wasn't an option, didn't study it at college because it wasn't really an option, didn't go to university, and have just kind of taught myself. I taught myself on digital. I have used film cameras in the past as a child, but when I started taking photography seriously, it was all digital. And I put my hands up. I myself have fallen into that trap of the run and gun approach and just,
Yeah.
I don't worry about it in post. But I do think there's something in slowing down, taking a breath,
Yeah.
and thinking about it. And it goes back to what you said before about composition and framing and those sort of elements that get lost by certainly sort of new people coming into the industry. But I also picked up on a couple of other things, key points of what you said there. They're sort of around the storyboard. It's about being flexible, and the other one's just escaped me. It's being flexible around the changes on site, and the other one will come back to me.
Yeah.
I'm sure. So let's go on to then sort of drone safety
sorry,
and
just-
law. That's all right.
Picking up on the last point. So
Yeah.
anyone that is looking to get into photography, just go get a cheap, like 35mm camera from a boot sale or something. So all it is, probably about 90% of them work. There's all sorts there. But some of these are like SLRs. You pick them up for like, I don't know, 20 quid, 10 quid. So most of these all work. So it's not like super expensive. You can just get these, even the point and shoot.
Yeah.
But like you say, the whole point of it is that you do only have maximum sort of like 30, 35 frames that you can get. So it will start to teach you to really find a shot, because you don't want to spend the cost of, you know, reel and getting them developed now is super expensive. So, well, in comparison to what it once was. So you go buy a couple of rolls, you know, get sort of 60 shots out of it, but then start to find shots.
Yeah.
I think your discipline will improve massively. So, like I say, for anyone who's out there thinking, wow, I can't get into film now because I need this. No, just go to a boot sale, pick one of these up for a £5 or something. Or if not, just send me a message. You can have one for a £5. You know, I've got a bit of a habit, but
No.
yeah.
What was the giveaway?
Yeah, exactly.
Camera probably can't see this, but it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 just on this shelf alone.
Yeah. Well, that's what I hear, because my wife was like, "You got to get these out of the house. You've got too many of them now."
Yeah. Does she know that you've still got them, or have you told her
Oh
that
yeah,
you've sold them?
That's it. Yeah. I won't get rid of like most of them, but like I said, I've got, like, the thing is that it's the art of it is what gets lost, I think, a lot of the time now, because it is so easy to fall into the trap of, you know, just pressing that trigger and let it go. And also there is the flip side. There's certain disciplines in photography that's a little bit more acceptable. So if you're shooting sports, for instance, or if you're shooting wildlife, you're gonna get a large number of shots, because you know it's tricky sometimes to get that one frame. But if you're talking about what we do, which is, you know, buildings, architecture, you know, construction, then you shouldn't be shooting the hell out of it. You should be taking the time to find the shot, because the building ain't moving. Yeah. Okay. All right. Conditions might change, you know, with the sun and everything. But if you do the right planning, you know where the sun's going to be to get the shot you want to. But I think for a lot of time, people fall into that trap of, you know, let's just and they go, oh right, we'll cull it in, you know, in post. Yeah. But you 9 times out of 10, people still back it all up, so you're just wasting space anyway, and storage, you know, isn't exactly cheap. So, yeah, I think it's, if you could just go get a cheap camera, 35mm, just start, you know, getting that discipline down with framing them. I think that'll go a long way. Yeah, I think sports is obviously the anomaly to that run and gun. Yes, like you're right, you have to run and gun. Yeah. Because you are going to, it's too quick, you are going to miss it. It's unpredictable. Yeah. So you've got to counter that with, obviously, you know, capturing what you can in the moment. Absolutely. Because sometimes you've got a split second. Yeah. But, you know, most people, you know, probably aren't shooting sports at that degree, or very rarely. Yeah. You know, so it's quite a niche. But I think, for anyone, you know, just find the shot. I think the important thing is as well, especially in today's age, just because you take a photo doesn't mean you have to share it. Yeah. Because that's the problem. Is it's like, take a shot, let's get it straight on the on the internet, on all my socials. And you don't have to. No. And you don't have to, if you're going to go to sort of film, you're doing it because you enjoy the art of photography, or of creating these images. So just enjoy the process. Mm-hmm. It just,
And that, I mean, that alone takes a lot of pressure off. When you think, this is for just for me.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether I get 0.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It's just about enjoying that process.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge key bit of advice there.
I think for us, like, we have hundreds of thousands of assets, whether it's, delivered photography or delivered video on our systems, and very little actually gets seen by the outside world other than the client.
Yeah.
And for us, that's, I think that's the exact point that you made, that, create it for yourself and for obviously our clients, but ultimately, we're never going to take a shot that we don't like ourselves.
Yeah.
And we have the confidence that our clients pay for our services because of our talent and what we can deliver.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So we have the confidence as a team to say, okay, well, look, our clients have come to us because they've seen our work, and that's based off of the feeling that we get and what we capture from our heart. And I think a lot of photography and a lot of people now, not just photography, but video as well, they shoot for someone else.
Yeah.
Now you have to be conscious of what the client wants, okay? But if you've got the confidence in yourself and in your ability and what you can deliver, then that's what you should be running with, right? That's what you should be doing. You shouldn't be shooting for other people all the time, or in the back of your head, oh, what if they want to see this? What if they want to see that?
Yeah.
No, what do you want to see? Like, what are you seeing right now? And I think that's what separates, a large number of content creators, whether you're a photographer, whether you're a drone pilot, or whether video production. I think you can see that those that are very confident with their abilities and what they're putting out, and ultimately, because the way we see it is, our clients come to us because of our expertise. We have that understanding, so we need to sort of take the problem that they've got and work out the best solution from our experience and what we know is achievable. So.
Yeah. Again, that's another thing that businesses buy into, isn't it? It's taking that brief and sort of saying, no, I appreciate that, but that's not going to work, but this will, and you'll still get the same outcome.
Yeah.
And that's, again, what they're buying into, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think every project should be a collaboration as well, because, like, a client might see something from their perspective which you've not been exposed to and you don't quite understand. And I think, like, a big part of any sort of content or media agency is being open-minded as well.
Yeah.
Because, you have conversations with other agencies and what they say is, the truth, and, it has to be that way. But it's not, and there's so much. I think the best agencies and what we try to do is be open-minded with it. So, yeah, not every suggestion is going to be valid and it's going to work, right? But if we're taking it on board and at least sort of trying to understand where it's coming from, we could probably get to a better solution in the end. So I think it's like there's certainly a lot of, no, our way is the right way.
Yeah.
But I think it's always about, being flexible with the client, being collaborative and saying, oh yeah, like, we hadn't quite thought of that actually, but, now you've mentioned it, that opens up this trail of thought, and then you get to a better solution in the end.
Yeah. So just going back to the key takeaways, because I remember the second one now. So it's being flexible as well on site and knowing your worth.
Oh,
Not being afraid to say to someone, we're not the right business for you to collaborate on this one.
Yeah.
And I think that's very difficult for people, especially when they're starting out, not to understand. They understand it. They know what they want to be doing, but it's difficult for them to say no.
Yeah.
Especially when starting out. And I think by not doing that, they kind of make a rod for their own back. Because once you get into that, okay, I will, you slowly, without realising that, become known for doing a certain thing that might not necessarily want the route you want to be going down. So I think it's knowing your worth was quite a key point that you made there.
Yeah, I mean, like, so we just do sort of like construction and real estate. That's our expertise. That's what we're really good at. That's what people know us for.
Yeah.
Right? Because we commit to that, like that discipline, that is all we do, because by doing that, we just build on our experience. We get better and better and better. First of all, it's a unique industry, especially construction. How to operate on site, how to be safe, all the insurances and risk assessments and everything. And we do all of that. Okay, so and we know that, and we know how to keep people safe, and we know how to act on a site, which is a huge thing.
Yeah.
Because you don't want. There's so many variables. There's so much danger with any site. You can't take that risk, and our clients don't want to take that risk. So by using us, they know that they've got that trust and that we're going to deliver in a safe way and get the results.
Yeah.
But if someone was to come to us and say, right, we've got a wedding next week, like, sorry, like that's, you will have to find someone else, because that's just not what we do. So I think I think you're right. Knowing your worth, and also if something pops up that isn't, say, in your discipline, or what you dedicate yourselves to, I don't think there is any problem with saying no, because ultimately, if we were to go shoot a wedding, the guys will be shooting all of the buildings and the roof and the structure and
Absolutely.
the barn, and, like that. So you're not going to get any of the days.
No.
But there's 1,000,001 better wedding photographers than even myself. That I've done it for 25 years, but I've done one wedding years and years ago, and I said it was the last wedding I'll ever do. So it just doesn't excite me. So I'm not going to get good imagery for you, because I don't have a passion for it.
No, I think a lot, not all, but a lot of people will start out shooting weddings, myself included, and I just didn't enjoy them. I didn't enjoy it was the traditional stuff that I didn't enjoy. That sort of, because you say to the best men, right, lads, I'm going to need your help rounding people up and getting people out. And when it gets to that point, they're nowhere to be seen.
Yeah.
And it's like, right, the easiest wedding I had was when they had a master of ceremonies, who literally just bellowed.
Yeah.
Got the list. I want you right over there. Brilliant. I just positioned myself. Click done. But I got more enjoyment out of just being there, doing the candid documentary style of it, and it got to the point where I'd get approached, say, "Are you available to shoot my wedding?" "Yes, I am, but this is my style." "Brilliant, no problem. That's my style. I'm not doing traditional stuff. I'm just doing the candid stuff. That's my style." "Yeah, get that, no problem." Until the day of the wedding. "Would you mind doing?" And it's their wedding. I'm thinking I could, by right, I could say no, because that's not what we've signed up to. But it's a wedding, and I'm never going to say, "Oh no." Well, yeah, okay, of course you can. So I thought, do you know what? I'm not going to do it anymore. I don't enjoy it, and it just kind of, for me, just puts a bit of a dampener on the day. They're long days.
Yeah. But those, and those that are really good at wedding photography, wedding video, are those that love it.
Yeah.
So like we had a fantastic wedding photographer for ours, Megan, years ago, and that's she's amazing at it, because that's what her passion is.
Yeah.
Whereas like for me, I don't. So like wedding is probably a bad example, but it's the most contrasting thing I can think of really from construction. But it's the same as anything, like sports. Those that are really good have the passion for it, right, and dedicate themselves to it. So whether it be weddings, whether it be construction, whether it be sports, those you'll always excel. Your image will always be outstanding and stand out from the rest of the crowd if you have a true passion for it, and that's what you love doing. And that's why we do construction, because I love architecture. I love, seeing things through time come through and basically be created. So like, there's nothing better for me than doing construction, doing real estate, and and architecture. Like, that is my passion. So I love doing. So the imagery is always going to stand out, because there is that enthusiasm for it.
And you're right, there has to be that, because otherwise you're going to give almost like a second-rate product, aren't you? And it's not just.
Well, you're just doing it then for a paycheck.
Of course, yeah, absolutely.
And I think if you're doing anything, it doesn't matter with content creation or if you're just doing it, it becomes a chore, right? and you're never gonna exceed
No.
you know what the I guess the baseline is
Yeah.
right for it.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
and that's the difference.
Right. We'll digress slightly. Let's talk about. Let's go back to drones. Talk about safety and law
Yeah.
because there's going to be differences that people might not necessarily understand about what you can or can't do with it in certain settings, and what you should have or might not need depending on what
Yeah.
the drone is. So let's talk about that.
Oh Christ, you're going to catch me up because there'll be someone that will go, no, that's changed in the last month. The issue is that the way that drone regulation is, it's an absolute minefield. So you've got like the CAA, which are ultimately, you know, the controlling authority. So I would say anything that I say, do not take it as the current up to date. We try and be as up to date as possible, but things do change constantly. Okay, so essentially, anyone who's flying a drone, they have to go get a flyer ID, which is like a little course online. I can't remember if it's that one or the operational ID off the top of my head, which one of them costs about £12. And then you get that, I think, for a year. I think that's Operation ID, it's that one, which is like, basically allows you to go fly drones in the UK. A flyer ID.
I'll check because I did read up on this thinking,
Yeah.
I need to at least sound like I know what I'm talking about.
Flyer ID is 5 years, isn't it, in place?
I don't know the timescales, but it's operator ID.
It's cost.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think that's yearly.
Right.
And what that allows is, I guess, for a little bit more advanced flying. Then you've got your basic certification. So there's various different ones. So we work off of the legacy version. So we obviously done ours a few years back, and it's all now graded into different sort of categories. So the main thing you need to think about is essentially weight of a drone and what you're flying for. So if you're flying for like commercial purposes, then you really should have insurance to cover that. It's a bit of a grey area as well, because some will read the law.
Yeah.
As
It's subjective, isn't it? Certain areas of law. Yeah.
But essentially, if you've got a drone that's under 249 grams, then there's a lot more flexibility in where you can fly it and what you're doing it for. My understanding, though, is still if you're doing it for commercial purposes, then you should have insurance in place to do that. And I think that's also where part of the Operation ID comes in as well.
You should have that really to cover yourself, really, shouldn't you?
Insurance?
Yeah.
Yeah, you should do, but look, you know, I'm not going to be one of these people that's sort of here and, you know, wagging their finger at anyone who doesn't, right?
Yeah.
I think if you make something as accessible as buying a drone is now, you've got to realise that not everyone is going to do it by the law. And this is the tricky thing that we have, and I've always said that us, even from day one, the perception of drone is what it is. A lot of people only ever hear the negative stories.
Yeah.
So a big part of our job at Miru is whenever we're on site is education. Yeah. So educating people that are interested, because people will see a drone. Now, if someone sees a drone that's up, we're flying it all legal and everything like that, and they ask the question, they're interested. If we go, you know, like some would, and just, you know, shut them down. Like for us, it's like bring the drone down, go over to them, have a conversation with them, tell them a little bit about you, because then they've got a positive interaction with a drone, right? Yeah. The truth of the matter is that drone technology is incredible. It's so good. Like, it allows us to do so much. There's a really positive thing. There's so many applications for it. It's brilliant. And through time, there's going to be so much more exposure to drones. I don't quite think, being in the industry, I don't believe that we'll get sort of parcels delivered to our gardens with drones and things like that, right? I don't think that. I think drone delivery is a real thing, but I don't think it's going to be on the scale which we're sort of talking about.
Yeah.
Because logistically, that is just an absolute nightmare. Legally, that would be a bomb waiting to go off, and operationally as well, it would be so expensive to do that, because it works on paper if everyone works in the way of society that you want it to, but unfortunately people don't.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? Like,
It's almost like a demolition man style society, isn't it?
well, yeah, but also as well, it's like, I'm just talking like, if you give like, I don't know, 16-year-old kids a BB gun and put a drone out and, you know, that's flying, what are they going to do? Like, do you know what I mean?
Target
So,
practice, eh?
so like, and that's just one example. I mean,
Yeah.
we've had, you know, a few instances as well, like even flying our drone. I won't go into too much detail, but where we've been flying completely legally, completely regulation, people don't quite understand, you know, the laws around drone, and they take it into their own hands. And you go, look, this is the law. This is, you know, we're heavily certified. We're heavily regulated. We're doing, you know, everything above board. Like, you know, give them all the information, but they just take that authority into their own hands. So, yeah, I think we've got this. You know, we've got to be realistic with what, you know, drones. The drone situation, the drone market is. People aren't always going to have insurances. I think it's then on the client to make sure that whoever they are working for, they are covered, because they could be easily liable for anything that happens if it could go wrong. And, you know, they are still relatively new technologies, so things do go wrong.
Yeah. So, bear in mind, you're very much construction architecture. What sort of heights do you take your drone to?
So we're legally allowed to fly up to 400 foot.
Right.
That's the same across every sort of drone, unless you have like an extended license. The difference is, and also what I'd say is, you don't really have to go above 400 foot. There are instances where you can get sort of like different permissions. So if you're working around a building, flying from a building that is higher than 400 foot, then you've got a bit of leeway around the perimeter of that building that can take you above 400 foot. But for the most people, you don't need to be at 400 foot. We rarely would shoot at 400 foot, because the imagery, it depends what you're trying to do, but like for the most part, we're not trying to get that highest point.
Yeah.
I'd say probably 300 foot is the sweet spot for most imagery, because you don't get that distortion as well.
Right.
So, yeah, it's there's lots to it, and I mean, like I say, we only know what we're operating in, and you know, making sure that we're all above board and legal. But there's so much to it, and there's so many different categories based on weight now and what you can do. But also there's the two sort of main areas, which is coverage, which is like open and specific. So our license, we can fly drones up to 20 kilograms.
Right.
And we can obviously, most of the time we fly in open category. So we would literally never fly a drone 20 kilograms, because that's a huge drone and it just doesn't require us to. But most of the stuff that we fly is in the open category. But we do have projects where we have to get a specific criteria rating, so that we can fly and make sure that everything's legal in what we're doing. So
bearing in mind the weight of the drones that you use, so we're talking to a professional grade as opposed to hobbyist. How often do you have to take a pilot test, or how often do you have to show that you're still competent in operating that drone?
Yeah, so that's part of like what the Flyer ID is as well. You know, you do a quick test, and you know, that's lasts you 5 years, so you're keeping up with the regulation. Now the regulation does change, so we have to, you know, try and be as up to date as possible. So we often find that it normally changes around sort of January time.
Right.
So if you're up to speed, we also, with our certification, we have to basically renew every year, and part of that is renewing our ops manual. So that is basically kept up to date throughout the year.
Yeah.
to ensure that, you know, we're covered and that everything's in place. We have to do sort of like flight logs, so they have to be up to date, because we can be audited at any moment. So,
Right, okay.
but that's based off of like the stuff that I guess we're doing and the qualification that we have.
That audit, is that unannounced?
Yeah, that can
Yeah.
be. Yeah. So they could literally
Right.
ask us sort of tomorrow, like, we need to see up-to-date flight logs, battery logs, your operation manual, you know, as well as your operational authorization and everything that goes along with that.
Right.
So, yeah, there's a lot to it, but most people don't need to do that.
Yeah.
I guess unless you're flying like we are.
Yeah.
I mean, we fly probably maybe like 10 hours a week.
Okay.
Which is a lot.
Yeah.
So, you know, that we're flying an awful lot. So we've got to make sure that all the drones
Yeah.
are constantly maintained.
Yeah.
And we've got facilities to do that, you know, that everything's above board, checking, you know, flights, that batteries are working and they're all good and there's no issues there
Yeah.
with them. But, you know, with everything, I think with drone pilots and being a drone operator or whatever you want to call us, right? It's just being safe, okay? So to work within the law, you know what the law is. It's quite simple. And don't do anything stupid.
Mm.
The issue that we now have, that I think is going to be the biggest issue, I don't think we've quite heard the extent of it yet, is that DJI are a Chinese company.
Yeah.
So like last year and before that, around sort of like specific restriction zones, especially airports, you wouldn't be able to take off from within that space without getting authorization beforehand. And the process would normally be you go to the air zone or whoever's sort of like the air traffic control, whoever's controlling that airspace, get the permission. They would give it to a written. You would send it off to DJI, depending on how sensitive the space was, and they would, you know, say approve, right?
Right.
But the DJI and the Chinese, I guess, authority, which probably overlooks them, right, basically pulled back from the European restriction zones, as far as I can tell, and basically all of the regulations. And now you can just fly a drone in any airspace.
Right.
Like physically, you can fly a drone.
Yeah.
Like, you know, through legislation, you shouldn't. You should
Yeah.
get the right approvals and make sure that you do it. But you can just click a few tick boxes and then fly this drone now.
Right. Okay.
Which I think is going to be a huge issue with the amount of people that have drones, because there is going to be people that cut corners.
Yeah.
And because they can now, they just will.
Yeah.
And I think that will be the issue. I mean, we've flown, we're flying in authorised airspace all the time. Central London, we flew literally 200 yards from Gatwick runway whilst it was operational for Gatwick Airport. We make sure that everything is done safe, is done by the law, and that we get the results for the client. But we know that we're an exception. Yeah. Sometimes. You know, there's a lot of professional drone pilots out there which are 100% the same as us, but I think it's probably outside of that professional zone. Because the thing is, we're so heavily regulated, we have to do it right. Whereas you could just go on Amazon, you go down to Argos, you could buy a drone, you could literally fly it next to a runway now.
Right.
Like physically just do it. And that's going to cause issues because people don't understand, you know, the regulations like we do, because we're working with it day in, day out.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be a big issue for drone. The drone industry is, I feel like as the reports start coming in, I'm almost positive that there's going to be a higher increase in people flying in restriction zones that aren't authorised to do so.
Yeah. Like I say, because they can.
Yeah. And the thing is, though, you don't have to be, you don't have to have all the, legislation and regulation certification that we do. If you go buy a drone now and you want to fly it within the restriction zone, speak with, air traffic control. Yeah. 9 times out of 10, as long as it's, sensible, what you're doing, they'll give you permission. You don't have to, it's an open thing.
Yeah.
But people just will stop going through that process because they'll just look at it and go, oh, I've got to wait, 21 days. I've got to wait 7 days for an approval. No, I'm going to go up now.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be an issue that we're going to have to deal with. And then re-education.
Yeah.
The public are maybe on that as well.
Yeah. Right. So anybody looking to get into sort of flying a drone, what would be your top tips for anybody? And take that from, I suppose, from your perspective of above the 249 gram size drones, what would be your tips to somebody who's
above that? If you're just getting started, I'd say don't bother. I'd say go 249.
Right.
We fly 249 drones.
Right.
You wouldn't be able to tell the difference because it comes down to framing. It's just a tool.
Yeah.
So we do have, bigger drones that we fly, and we fly them on specific projects. If we're flying in central London, we get, to make sure that we're above the law and to make sure that we, basically are making things as easy as possible. We don't always have to use the bigger drones. Like the technology's there.
Yeah.
Right. The issue is that people don't know how to use the drones. People don't know how to use, frame the shot.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Right. Okay.
So, even we've got a screen here playing in the background, but, I would challenge you to pick out what's been flown with a $5,000 drone compared to a, drone that's, I don't know, under $1,000.
Yeah.
But 249 in the compilation video, because it's what you do with the footage,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
It's how it's framed, it's how it's shot, it's
Yeah.
exposure, it's like white balance, it's then putting like a decent grade on it.
Yeah.
They're the things that, make something deliverable for a client. So I would say anyone who's looking to get into drone, go buy a Mavic, a DJI Mini 3, go buy the Mini 4 and start just flying. Get used to how a drone operates in the air and how you can get a good, nice shot with it. Because, for us, we operate in such a different world from what a lot of hobbyists are going to work within. But you save yourself, all of that regulation and, the certification side of things that you would need if you're going to fly drones above, 249.
Yeah.
I think you just got to do the flyer ID and maybe the ops. I can't remember what criteria is for that specifically, but you could easily just go buy one, do a quick test, and do the stuff you have to do online, and get out there and start taking some cracking imagery. But it's
frame
like,
it correctly, and
well, this is it. And like I say, like for us, like I don't get excited by camera releases. I don't get excited by lens releases. Like our lens are from 1970. It's glass. It's crystal. Like you buy good quality crystal. All right, ours
but
are
you're the Leicas, aren't they? So you are using some really good high quality grade glass, aren't you?
But even we don't just solely shoot in them. We've got Canon Sigma. We've got Contax Zeisses. Like the thing is that each element of equipment is just a tool.
Yeah.
If you don't have the skill behind it, then it is almost irrelevant.
Yeah.
Like I don't care, but people get excited about red cameras or we've got to have this, we've got to have that. Oh, I've seen this new bit of tech, brilliant. Our cameras are capable of 4K, 6K. We never shoot 6K.
I think those types of people fall into two categories, don't they? Always have to have the most shiniest and newest, and the other side of it is ego boost. I'm shooting on this. Great. Okay. Like you say, what you use from the 70s is still probably far better than that because of how they were manufactured and the time spent into producing a Leica lens from the 70s in comparison to the companies now who are saying we must release 6-7 new products per year. Yeah. And they're just getting thrown out.
There's so much now. But also, like, I've never had a client ever approach me in my whole career that's said to us before awarding us a project, said, oh, by the way, what you shooting on.
What you shouldn't. They don't care.
But they don't.
They don't care. They think that, and I think this is something that people need to understand. Clients don't care what you shoot on.
No, it's the output.
It's the result that you give them. And I see on, and I see it all the time, and I intentionally avoid it when people are. So you get a lot of people that use a specific brand or a particular brand, slamming other people for using different brands.
Yeah.
It's all. It doesn't matter.
But
it honestly doesn't matter.
I think that's just tribalism, isn't it?
Of course it is. Yeah, they're just doing that for traction and comments
And
on their own posts, but
Yeah.
and they get it.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
everyone jumps on the bandwagon, don't they? Yeah.
And I mean, look, each their own as well. Like, if you just want to use Sony, if you just want to use Canon, if you just want to use, Red or whatever, then fair play to you. Like, crack on. But I think what we've sort of fallen into, and I think social media has been a big part of this, is getting into people's head that you have to have the latest bit of equipment, you have to have this. And that's just not the truth. And this comes back to our storytelling point.
Yeah.
Like, you could shoot on a potato and the client wouldn't care. If the story and the value is there, right, they could not care less about equipment. And like I said, I've never in my whole career ever had a client award us a project based on the equipment that we use, because they can see the output.
Yeah.
Right. So from experience, they can see the stuff that we've done previously. They just want to replicate quality, and they don't care how you get there. So there is, and this is my biggest thing as well for, especially younger people getting into the industry. Just go shoot, right? It doesn't matter what you do. They'd just pick up a camera and find the frame, find the angle, and learn the craft.
Yeah.
And then you're gonna exceed, 90% of everyone else.
I think as well, some advice that I sort of find myself repeating to people as well is when they're saying, what camera should I use? What lens should I use? Go rent.
Yeah.
Go rent 3 or 4 different brands, 3 or 4 different types of lenses, see which one you feel most comfortable with and what you prefer the look of. Because they'll all shoot slightly differently. And they'll all feel differently, and it's about what's comfortable, what's right for you. So go rent. My advice is always to rent over the course of a weekend, because you get extra sort of day and a half with the rentage.
Yeah.
Because most companies will send it to you on a Thursday, because your rent will be Saturday, Sunday, but they're not going to ship it out on Friday, so they'll send it to you on Thursday.
Yeah.
So you'll get it Thursday, you get half a day Thursday, you get all day Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then they'll pick it up on Monday, so you get 4 days for the price of 2.
No, I agree. I think that the cost now is one thing you do have to bear in mind, because the thing is, like I say, it's a tool, right? It's a tool. If you're going to invest in anything, invest in lenses and lights.
Yes.
Because there'll be the two things, like, okay, lighting technology, yes, LEDs come in now, but up until, I don't know, sort of 10 years ago, like, it was still halogen bulbs, right? So, and that had been the same since, 60s? So, if you've lights, lighting's ain't going to change, right? Especially LED now, lighting's not going to change. Invest in that. You use that on every single project. Invest in good glass, because like I say, our glass is over 50 years old, and it's still
As long as you
so
keep it clean.
good. So invest in those things, and I guess actually the lenses are slightly different now, because they are sort of like a bit more automatic based on the camera they're connected to.
Yeah.
So you might be alright if you go for like a sort of like a secondary brand like Sigma or something. But if you go like Canon or Sony, they've made it as exclusive as possible. So you can't.
You will get like the Sigma or Tamron Fit, won't you? But it's
So like, I'd say invest in that if you're going to invest in anything. But that's not the glamorous thing to invest in. The glamorous thing is the camera. But
Absolutely.
the camera technology is moving on so quickly. And this is another thing now, is like, you're seeing like 12K cameras come out. Who is shooting? Like, unless you're doing something like incredibly high end, and even then, I would question whether you're shooting 12K. I think it goes beyond future proofing now, because the point in which we're going to get to with 12K is going to be. I think I'm going to be on death's door by the time 12K becomes.
Yeah.
Because it's just not. It's not going to be widespread enough. Like in terms of people seeing the advantage of 12K over say 4K. 6K. I think 6K might even be skipped straight. We might just go straight to 8K.
Yeah.
Who knows? But like, it's just a big number now.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think you've just got to be realistic about the output. What are people watching things on?
Yeah.
Most people are still watching things in HD.
Yeah.
So it's like, be realistic. Like, you don't need the snazzy camera all the time, but use it as a tool mentality and say, okay, well, look, for this project, it would be really handy to have this piece of equipment or this specialized piece, or get that super duper ready, and if you really want to use it, but you don't have to buy it.
Don't hire it in.
Yeah.
You can hire it in for that. And then I'd also go as far as to say to people, buy second hand. And I'm not sort of talking about sort of the buying all your kit from places like eBay, where you are taking a risk because you're relying on someone being honest with their photos and their description of it. But if you go to a reputable company who sell camera equipment, anything used will always go through their internal quality assurance process. So it's always going to be good, and you've always got someone to go back to and say, this isn't what you said. I mean, you save hundreds.
Yeah, you've got some good sites now. So you've got MBP, you've got Park Cameras, you've got Camera World.
Yeah, I'll go through. The last lens I bought was through Wex.
Oh, well, they offer, don't they? Yeah.
Yeah.
So so there's some really good places now that you can get like second-hand gear. Yeah. So you don't have to break the bank.
No. I saved myself hundreds. It was a macro lens I bought. Saved myself. I think I got it almost half price. Just because it was
second-hand. Yeah.
It was second-hand.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with the lens. Just got to keep the top of it clean.
Yeah.
As I found out the other day. I thought, oh, okay. I thought it was clean. It's not as clean as I thought it was. So, okay. I'll go back to the drawing board.
Yeah.
Go clean it again. So, last question for you, just to sort of finish off, is what drones do you use?
So at the minute we had a bit of a cull because we had
a bit like cameras. You started collecting them, have you?
Yeah. Well, we had about 5 drones, and then we found that we were just using a few. So we've actually cut right back. So we've got a training drone, which is the Mini 2. So anyone new that just wants to sort of get used to basically how a drone works, that's good. We use the Mini 3 on projects, and we've got the Mavic 3 Cine. So that's like the workhorse. That's the one we'll do a lot of stuff with. But between that and the Mini 3, we've found like that's covers us for absolutely everything. We've had Phantoms, we've rented in Inspires, but really for the output now that you can get, we can shoot ProRes, RAW. It's incredible. The Cine's outstanding.
Yeah, and like I say, everything comes back to and comes down to, doesn't it? Like you say, understanding how to frame, compose, and understand the other slight elements, sort of white balance, ISOs, and essentially how to colour grade your video.
That's that is the skill of it all.
Yeah.
So I mean, you could get someone to take up like the latest Inspire and then me take up sort of like the Mini 2, which is an old drone, and I think I'd have the confidence for someone who's never shot before, that the imagery that I'd be able to take with just because it's the core skill of it, and that's what gets lost. And I think that is the difference as well with a lot of the industry now, with Jimmy just buying a camera and going out there and trying to sell his services, and the difference with all content creation is that I guess, craft experience. 'Cause I think experience isn't always, the one and only, because there's enough dinosaurs out there as well that have got all the experience, but they're not, adapting to the new ways that technology and the ways that people consuming content.
Yeah.
So I think you've always got to be up to date with new
Yeah.
styles, new trends. But I do think that there is a lot of content out there, and the need for content is so vast and great that people just skipping the story element now. So I would always say, think about substance over quantity, really, and make sure whatever's going up and being posted about is a good reflection on your brand and company, and showing you in the right light that you want to be seen in, rather than just putting up a piece of content because you forgot and you need something to go up today.
Yeah. Brilliant. I think that's a perfect place to end it. No, thank you very much for letting me come to your office and sort of just pick your brain really about drones. Thank you very much.
No,
cheers, Bill.
Cheers.
Thank you, mate. I hope you enjoyed listening to this episode as much as I did talking to Billy about drones. I genuinely could have chatted all day on this topic, which leads me on to my question. Would you like to hear more conversations from guests discussing their creative niches? If you would, then let me know by either commenting on this episode or by messaging me on either X or Threads. And additionally, if this is something you would like me to produce more of, who would you like me to invite onto the podcast? Once again, thank you for lending me your ear. I genuinely appreciate your time. Don't forget to follow the Visual Storytelling Podcast. And until next time, be creative, be inspired, be you.